So roughly, plan tonight will be a rough little bit of theory on defensive and offensive positioning. When I say offensive, I don't mean attacking. I mean so fire lines, fire points, and defensive means how to stand in such a way that you increase your survivability. Then we'll just go through some rough tactics and tools to make that work. It's going to be a very simple and short session, as best as I can, because like I said, I'm expecting to be up against the clock. So to start off with, I'm going to be using your squads as little elements. For those that don't know, in every warp gate, you'll find these buildings at the opposite end from the warp gate terminal. But many people have probably never been to this end of the gate. For those that don't know, these are the stock standard buildings that you'll find all over PlanetSide. There is the triple building, which we're at right now, which you'll see commonly. For those that know, it's commonly referred to as the triple. It's 3 levels. You've got middle, floor, and top. Over on the other side of the warp gate pillar there is the Biolab Generator room, which you'll see in a lot of bases. And scattered on the other sides of it are small buildings that you'll see used as basically props and filler. These 2 buildings are the main buildings that you'll encounter for close quarters defense due to points, or they're just a stock building they like to throw in when they need something big and bulky. So if you ever need to do any sort of close quarters training or building breaching or anything like that, this is a great place to do it. You've got every building you need. To start off with, I'm going to have a squad at random. I will be selecting random volunteers as well tonight. Yes, selecting random volunteers. Just to put a few things into practice and demonstrate to people, and I'll also be selecting squads to go in and do stuff. Let's head over to the generator building, which is the one to our east, southeast. First demo on this one, it'll be as if people are breaching from a teleporter into a biolab, because this is a biolab generator room. So random squad, Charlie. Charlie wants you to move in, set up defensive positions. Show me how you'd set up to defend this room. Everyone else, hold outside. It's actually not too bad, Charlie. That's what I like to see. Okay, that's good. Yep, it's pretty solid. People breaching from down there, you'd probably want a few more turrets on the line, but we'll go through that in tactics later. People can come inside now. One thing you'll notice Charlie's done is they've set up a long way away from the door. This is a very, very, very good thing. The thing you will always see is pubbies down here at the door, being the first guy getting to the front, trying to peek out the door and basically get themselves shot in the face. Anyone does this, and I know a lot of people do this, I know I see a lot of my people doing it, and I see a lot of SOCA guys doing it, and I see a lot of everyone doing it. So basically, the worst possible thing you can possibly do in a defensive position is come down here right up against the door and, you know, try to step outside and be the greedy guy getting all the kills, because it really, really, really hurts your defense. Not only do you get killed, it gets your medics killed, it gets the enemy body shields. So, just a quick little demo. Can I get someone down here to be, I'll grab someone in Delta, guarded. I want you to be, Donnie Derp. You're inside defending, you're a puppy, you're up against the door. You guys probably want to step away from the door, this is about to get messy. Primary reason why that doorway is a bad idea. That's the primary reason. Quite easy for enemies just to throw C4 through and blow you up without you even having a chance to see them. Another reason, if you would mind, guarded. Come res this man. No, not from outside. I say people come down. Another reason is when people are down, medics will come to res you. Same thing will happen. They'll call the medics, they'll step through, they'll shotgun the medic directly in the face. Boom, you've just lost a medic. Someone goes down to res the medic, that person gets killed. You end up with no medics and a heap of people sitting around just slowly getting ground out and picked off. That's one of the worst things that can happen. and it happens a lot. You see people when they're in a defensive position, they'll run downstairs, they'll go off chasing kills. They'll die, medic will go down to get them, the medic will get killed, and then you'll have no medics at all. If you've got any questions... Yeah.
I think
you just muted me as well. You muted me as well, Misk.
It should be all squad. Thank you. Thank you.
Doesn't work. So we're actually running a training session, guys. If you want an invite, we might have some space, but I'll see if we can get Bravo Charlie to invite you.
Yeah.
I'll go through that in later when I get to that force that's a wires off yet. Do you guys want an invite, SHAU? Or are you guys just looking around? We're just doing a training session on Joint War Council. Yeah, you know? It's all on platoon chat, so you won't be able to hear me.
Yeah, nah, we're good for now.
Right. So that is one of the reasons why it's bad to be down here near the doorway. Okay, there's another reason as well, which I'll get an explanation of. Where was my Donnie Dirk Maxu? That was you, Griffs, wasn't it?
Sorry about that.
To come over here to the doorway and be the... This is one that you will always see. The max suit standing in the doorway, dancing backwards and forwards, trying to be the guy. He thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's body blocking for the enemy so that he can tank all the damage that's coming in. He's actually doing a lot of damage. Not only is he C4 bait, as demonstrated with Guarded. You know, engineers come up behind him, they try to rep him. C4 bait, you take out all your engineers and your max. He's also blocking the ability of friendlies to shoot at enemies coming through the doorway. So, can I get Alpha 3, Bravo 7, Charlie 2? Can I get you guys to come to the front? What your numbers are, check it. I'm just selecting numbers at random off the top of my head. Can I get you guys to set up over here, like on the stairwell? Can everyone give him a bit of space, as if you were, you know, defending from here? Hold still there, Griff. Comes up to the doorway. Are you guys able to see me, my volunteers? If you can see me, just take one shot, put a bullet down to see if you can hit me. You'll notice that not only is he standing there being C4 bait, he's actually body blocking bullets intended for the enemy. Now, best case scenario, you put a heap of bullets into the back of the friendly and he goes down. Worst case, the friendly runs through him, because there's no collision. He runs through, he's inside and he's shooting at you while you're trying to shoot at him, and you're shooting while trying to shoot the enemy, and you're shooting friendlies at the same time. Best case scenario, if you guys try to position yourself, there you go. If you try to shoot through him onto me, just unload. All out, all out. You guys were being pretty accurate there, I have to say. Generally, you'll find that if you're just spraying away, the person in the doorway is acting as a body shield for the enemy. In the case of a max, you are basically tripling to quadrupling the HP, the health pool of the enemy. In the case of a single infantry, you're doubling their health. So it basically means it's double the amount of bullets you need to put down range to kill that enemy, and it basically makes things much, much more difficult. Griffs, if you can step back up. If that person isn't there and an enemy comes through, I'll get my same 3 volunteers to start shooting as I enter. Thank you. Run the enemy straight down. You don't have to worry about hitting friendlies. You don't have to worry about, you know, the person having straight HP. If they're an infiltrator, it's much easier to see a cloaking infiltrator running through when you don't have friendlies body blocking. And I don't know, lately I haven't seen it as much, but it used to be a meta where in these blockouts, an infiltrator would just sprint straight in cloak, throw down a prox mine in the middle of everyone, and wipe out, you know, half a squad with a single prox mine. Don't see it as much these days because people are a bit more switched on, but it is still something to watch out for. If you look around now, if you guys don't move, and just have a quick look around where you are, that right there is a perfect firing line and circle. You've got yourself a good 10 to 15 metres between you and the door. Enemy comes through, they can't instantly kill you with a shotgun, they can't hit you with HE and explosives. And if you notice, you've got a beautiful little concave firing arc. Anything coming through that door right now would get absolutely fucking minced. Like, it would not last half a second. So that's just when you're setting up for defensive positioning, and I know it's not always possible. Some buildings are better for it than others. This building is amazing. Like 2 squads can hold off a platoon forever and a day if they're set up well in this building. It's just that good. You can hold off anything short of 2 squads of maxes, and even then, once you're prepared, you can hold them off. These buildings are great. Other buildings aren't so good. The triple isn't too bad depending on how you set up, and I'll go through the buildings a little bit later, but that's just something I really, really, really wanted to stress into people is anyone who stands there at the doorway and anyone who dances backwards and forwards, they are actually a liability to your team. They're helping the enemy out. Now, I'm not going to tell you to team kill that person. I am specifically and most unilaterally telling you not to shoot that person. That said, it doesn't hurt to warn them every now and then. Now, so that was just basic positioning for defensive and offensive. Offensive, you want to set up a nice little firing line, so you've got a good bit of killing ground. If you're constantly seeing people dance in front of your firing line, or if you're standing here and you look around and you see friendlies either side of you, that's good. If you're standing forward and you look to the sides and you don't see friendlies beside you, you are too far forward, and you're about to get shot in the back of the head, whether it's intentional or not, it just happens. Also, another thing to keep in mind is if you're in front, crouch down. If you don't know if you're in front, look in front of you. If there is no one in front of you, you are the person in front and you should crouch down. Even if you don't think there's friendlies behind you, it basically doubles the amount of firepower you can get out of that single bit of space. It does mean the enemy has a much juicier target, but it also doubles the amount of firepower you can deliver. That's another thing you don't see a lot of people doing, and I highly recommend if you ever go into a position where you're digging in and you don't know if there's friendlies behind you or not, crouch anyway. If a friendly comes up behind you, they're less likely to shoot you in the back. You're also more accurate when you're crouched. You present a smaller target. You are a little bit more vulnerable to getting shot in the head, but that's just the price to pay. A lot of weapons, especially high recoil ones, crouching down amplifies your accuracy at an incredible, incredible amount. Let's see. So we'll go through a few simple tactics depending on the buildings. Now, shit, I had the wrong loadout. Switch over to the triple building, and we'll just go through a rough look at that one, and then we'll come back to the gen room. If you take nothing from this at all, if you think everything I'm saying is complete and utter bullshit, and you just want to run around and shoot stuff, if nothing else you take from it, don't stand near the doorway. I call people that dance in doorways ballerinas. That's what they do. They dance around, they get in the way. I always say don't dance in doorways, ballerinas are bullet sponges. All they're doing is soaking bullets intended for the enemy. A few good ways to set up firing lines and hard blocks. Now, this is a triple building. You'll often see this as a cap in most small outposts, or you'll see it as a large building that you can use to set up a fire position. Now, before I go on, I'm not going to tell you these things are what you do on a cap every time. If you have equal numbers, you're often much better pushing out, securing Overwatch and enfilade on the enemies leaving the spawn room. Very rarely do you want to actually bunker directly into the cap point unless you know that there's a fuck ton of enemy air that you can't deal with, you're heavily outnumbered, and you need to concentrate the enemy numbers and your firepower. Or you've basically got no other option and you're getting pushed hard and you need to clutch back in. Where possible, always go for Overwatch and enfilade. For those that don't know what enfilade is, it's basically overlapping fields of fire. I might do another training session on it sometime depending on how people feel about it. But generally you don't want to be bunkered up inside because it gives the enemy a target where they know where you are, unless you absolutely have to. And those situations are outnumbered, outgunned, basically back up against the wall. So a good lockdown in this one. Oh, before I go any further, I would like to introduce you to your new favourite toy. So, ladies and gentlemen, is the AI Mana Turret, the Anti-Infantry Mobile Advanced Nanite Assembly. Not only does it fire, it absorbs all damage that hits the shield, HE or otherwise. It does have a few vulnerable weak points, being the barrel and the legs. If you get hit on them, damage will go through. Any damage that hits the actual shield will do nothing. Point blank rockets, grenades, C4 on the shield, do fuck all. These things are absolutely amazing. I cannot recommend enough. I recommend all engineers use this as your default. Unless you're specifically going out to hunt tanks, carry one of these. They are so goddamn good it is not funny. On their own, they're vulnerable to getting flanked, to locking down. An enemy can charge through you before you can kill them, because they do have a fairly high time to kill. It takes a while to put an enemy down with one. But if you get a group of them set up, ready to go, so can I get my Delta people up here that know what they're doing? Nice little wall setup. Can be difficult setting a wall up. Guys, careful pushing through. This is another thing you need to be careful of when you're setting up and friendlies are coming in to set a wall up. If you're standing in where the turret needs to go, you will block deployment. So your hollows will block deployment. So only one guy at a time, guys. Step aside. Back off access, let Tony she's down, and then you can get yours up. The hollow will block other hollows. You also need to be careful where you're positioning. You can maximise the amount of coverage you have. If you guys look up the stairs, you'll see a nice solid wall of turrets. Now, anyone coming around this corner looking up that stairs is firstly going to shit themselves, and they're going to have a hard time getting through. They also act as blocks. They have collisions, so people trying to charge are going to run into them. It can fuck up charge maxes quite well if you get a nice tight wall, which can be difficult when you're in combat. Any grenades thrown up, they're going to bounce off the shields and come back down the stairs if you position them forward far enough. You do need to try and get them forward as far as you can on the stairs for that to work, though. And that's basically mobile cover that you will not have when you try to take these places. I cannot recommend these enough. I honestly, when I go into a lockdown, I want at least 2 turrets on each stairs, more if possible. Enemies, unless they're incredibly accurate, they have trouble hitting. If they're under fire, they have trouble getting accuracy to put the damage or the rockets into the barrels. Grenades bounce off, I think I told you about that one. They're incredibly good. Honestly, these should be your new favourite toy. They should be your lover, your baby. You should caress them to sleep at night. They're that fucking good. When you're setting up like this on a stairwell, if you see a line of turrets like this, or a line of friendlies defending up here, anything on this stairwell is the kill zone. This is your killing ground, same as at that door before, we have your nice little semicircle. This is even better because they can't get a flank on you unless they come around from a completely different angle. They have to run through your area, which is full of fire. Anyone trying to come up through here is going to have a really, really, really bad time. If you get conked when you're on one of those turrets, it doesn't matter because you're already looking down into the field of the fire line. You get conked, you fire anyway. You get blinded, you fire anyway. You don't have to worry about friendlies standing in front of you, getting shot when you randomly spray. You don't have to worry about the enemy being off to the side. You know they're somewhere in that little arc in front of you and you can just hold down the trigger and spray even if you can't see them. Vulnerabilities to the AI turret wall. Grenade spam can fuck you up. For that, if you're ever in a lockdown situation, I highly, highly recommend flak armor. And a coordinated group will break the wall quite easily. They'll just throw on your grenades.
Machine gun.
They do have vulnerabilities. A solid max charge can give you trouble, but the turrets can body block a lot of that. The counters to the grenade spam are counter grenade spam of your own, which can be difficult, or a conk grenade with a counter push, but that's a little bit tricky. If you're in a lockdown, you really don't want to be pushing down the left, so you absolutely have to. Counter to the max charge requires a sensor device. We're going to infiltrators here with their sensor device equipped. None? None at all? I'm disappointed in you.
The device or the darts?
The detection device. The darts are good for mobile, but in a lockdown you really want the actual device, not the darts. Power to the device is it detects
as you can see, I
what
successfully got past the machine gun.
Just ignore that guy if you can. Team killing, just fucking ignore him. Otherwise he's going to keep shouting on procs. He'd try to bring us to a war gate where we wouldn't have to deal with that. The sensor device has the unique ability to detect what the class is, so most importantly, it detects basically maxes. You have a lot of forewarning on a max crash when they come. It gives you time to get your heavies in place if you have heavies with you with conks, ready to slow them down as they come up. It gives you time to get your C4 in place to crash them. Max crashes will come in a ball, so a conk followed by a C4 will wipe out a good 6 to 8 maxes, and then you can gun the rest down because they're all hurt. That's not theory crafting, we've done that in practice, we've broken dire crashes doing things like that. It's quite easy. When you see that mini-map light up with maxes inbound and a nice little ball, get ready, get your C4 out, because you know they're about to come pouring up the stairs. You can even prep your C4, you can tag it off the roof here, off the walls on the ground. As soon as they come through, you blow it. The next main vulnerability is being flanked, and this is a tricky one, and it's especially in these triple buildings. It's incredibly hard to hold on to against a solid coordinated enemy of intelligent players. Like, you can farm pubbies all day by doing this, like, all fucking day. They just keep running upstairs, you keep mowing them down. Coordinated group will grenade spam, which is tricky and it's very hard to deal with. If you get hit by one of them, then you're going to be pretty fucked anyway. Generally, you want to catch them out in the open field before they get to you. If you're outnumbered, outgunned, and they hit you with a coordinated group, then you're fucked. There's no saving you. Pubby swarms, Dxtory.
New anti-conk implants.
I haven't had a chance to play with them enough. That's when I go over the actual devices. Yeah.
I think it basically makes you immune to the effects.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play with them, and I haven't had a chance to play with implants enough to actually make any solid calls on them as of yet. You know, things like battle hardened and stuff are going to make it much trickier for a good solid lockdown with a concentrated fire, but we'll see how we go as that develops. Yeah, so setting up in one of these buildings, a good way to set these buildings up is definitely have designation on sides. So for those that know, we call this building a triple. It's a triple story, bottom, middle and top. If you're heavily outnumbered, and a lot of these stuff I'm telling you about when I describe tactics is designed for when you're outnumbered and outgunned, because that's where we developed them in the days of TR 24% world pop being fucked on by Vanu air swarms. So a lot of it won't be entirely valid these days. If you're an even pops, you want to be out there keeping them off you. Whereas if you have lower numbers, then you might want to bunker in. So in these buildings, you've got bottom floor, middle floor, top floor. Generally, bottom floors are right off. There are too many entrances, too many doors, unless you know the enemy's coming through one door and they're being funneled through that, and then you can set up a lower level defense. If you're trying to bunker in on a point and they're coming from everywhere, generally you want to fall back to the middle level. You get your 2 walls up on each turret, two walls up on each stairwell. Room designation, generally the room we have with the cap point we call the primary room, and the room without the cap point we call the secondary room. This is so when contacts are coming in or you're getting hit from certain angles, you have a call out so you know where they are. You can say, you know, primary stairs are being pushed and people know that's the one coming to the cap point room. Or, you know, secondary upper stairwell, and people know that's light assaults in the room without the cap point, that's where they're coming through. If you've got 2 squads, you'd put, you know, Alpha in primary, Bravo in secondary. So just, I'll go through that as well, depending on the positioning and what you want to call it a little bit later. Roof is generally a death zone if the enemy has air. You know, you go up there, you're going to get farmed, your medics go up to the resi, you're going to lose your medics, same again. Main vulnerabilities are windows, as you can see here. Light assaults will come through. If tanks get an angle, they will spam HE through. A constant threat, something you've got to be aware of. Depending on the building you're in, you may need to reposition your walls or your fallback lines, otherwise you're just going to get constantly spammed with HE. The balcony is a major threat from light assaults. The second level always has a balcony. Probably want to have a few guys watching this, either on turrets or just as your squad medics that are running around keeping people up, keeping an eye on that as well. The most dangerous place you can get attacked from is the roof. Enemies come down from here, they have a height advantage, they have a perfect sight on your entire room while you have very little angle on them, and that's where you're going to get broken from if you are going to get broken. Incredibly difficult to hold. The only thing you can really do is have a few claymores down, maybe a stalker or 2 on the roof calling out as they come in, and a couple of guys just keeping eyes up. It's incredibly difficult to hold it from this upper landing. It's an incredibly potent place. If you get a turret up here on the upper landing as we have here, and the front line gets broken, you have a perfect angle to mow guys down as they come up the stairs. However, all it takes is a single Liberator or ASF to fly by, and they can just hammer this upper landing with Zephyr rounds or pods, and you're smashed. So it can be quite tricky. There are a few people out there that do things in different ways. Jugger likes to run their medic balls with maxes, so they can just hunger up inside and just tank it out and mow down anything that comes in. It works, it's effective, it's a bit ugly, but it comes down to personal taste. I personally prefer the hard stops, but like I said, it comes down to personal taste. So can we get Alpha Bravo set up a defense in this? We'll get Charlie Delta outside just to give them a bit of space and a bit of room. a turret set up inside, then just deploy one outside. I'll give you guys a little bit of time to get your stuff deployed.
Our squad comp is all over the place.
Alright, if you need to, there's an infantry terminal downstairs. Side, in the little courtyard thingy.
Please hold your fire.
Sure, I was just going to switch to AI instead of AV turret. Where's that terminal?
Yep. Downstairs, outside, in the little courtyard under the balcony.
Roger, thanks, Val. Thanks
Right
for the
here.
tips too, mate. You're doing a good job.
Yes, it's a bit disorganised because I kind of throwing this together at the last moment. Haven't really had time to do jack all lately.
It's cool. It's going good.
Let us know when you think you're set, guys, and I'll come up and have a quick look through.
Yep, Bravo's set.
Waiting on the call for Alpha.
No, mate. Sorry, where do you want me?
Oh yeah, that's
just
right.
wait.
Yeah, that's
Alpha set.
yeah.
See what we got.
Yeah, Alpha's good.
I'll say, looking good, people. You have a small issue on the eastern stairwell. It's an upper stairwell. I'm coming through here. There's a few guys watching from the door, but if they came through and put a grenade out, you'd have trouble. Like I said, it is an incredibly hard area to hold these upper stairwells, unless you have mass AA support, in which case you don't need to do a lockdown anyway. You can push out and catch them as they leave the spawn. AV turrets, you can use them as a hard stop in an emergency. Their main issue is they don't have the damage resistance that the AI turret does. So anyone hits that with a rocket, it's actually going to explode all around you, whereas if anyone hits the AI turret on the shield with a rocket, it's just going to deflect the damage away, or you'll only take a very small amount. I know a lot of NGs run AV turrets as their default just because they are so good at killing tanks, but I'd highly recommend, if you ever have any idea that you're going to be going into a close quarter situation, load up the AI, because they are incredibly good. I cannot overstate how good they are. Overall, not too bad. You probably want a few more eyes watching the balcony, or at least a turret. Say, here, keeping an eye on it. It is an area for light assaults to push through a lot as well. Also, a lot of bases have areas where non-light assaults can jump up onto the balcony, so you will get pushes coming through there. Overall, actually pretty decent looking. Anyone coming up these stairs is going to be in a world of pain. Beautiful. It's always good to have a heavy on each stair ready to go. If you are going in for full lockdown and you know you're setting up and you can call for it with a conch grenade, just because if you do get crashed and they see a big swarm coming in, throw a conch down and then put a couple of frags in and clean them up quite nicely. With lockdown maxes in a situation like this, it varies depending on doorway, window exposure and stuff like that. You can use lockdown max and an AI turret as a fairly effective shield. It does limit your field of fire. Fairly good Alpha and Bravo. Like what you're saying, over time you do learn where your weaknesses are, where you're going to get pushed from and react to it. Depends on the enemy you're facing. Some of them can do a lot better jobs, but at crushing. If you hit fighting pubbies, you'll get the odd light assault coming through, but most of them will just run up the stairway and die over and over and over again. It's hilarious. Fairly solid, guys. Like what I'm saying. I'll get you to come outside and I'll just do a quick demonstration of what you can do with a lockdown max and an AI turret. Over here, Griffs is set up with one. Are you lockdown, Griffs?
No, this is awkward.
Just
say that I am, though, and pretend, I guess.
Yeah. If you come over here to this... Come over here to this AI turret where it's set up. Give it a bit of space, guys.
Where are you?
Charlie, keep your people from running everyone over in the middle of the fucking training session, please. This AI turret, just stand up as close to the back of the turret as you can. You can use the AI turret as a bit of a body shield for a lockdown max. It does limit your field of fire quite a bit. It's very hard to aim down and you can't aim to the sides too much. But the main vulnerability of a lockdown max, and the reason a lot of people don't use it, is because you cannot move and you're a sitting duck for someone to just duck out and rocket you in the face. With an AI shield in front like this, you can deflect quite a bit of the damage. You can take at least one direct rocket absorbed to the barrel of the turret, and the turret will die and won't hurt the max. Any other damage is going to hit the shield and be completely deflected. It's not something I'd recommend as a go-to because it does limit your field of fire quite a bit, but it is a good way to keep your max a lot more survivable if you know you're going to be taking rockets from direct front, which once the enemy sees that you're sitting there with a lockdown, they will do. Speaking of lockdown, lockdown is one of the most underappreciated abilities in the game. It is incredibly good in a defensive situation, especially if you get a couple of maxes set up and ready to go. We'll head over to the gen room to demonstrate this. Can I get... actually, I'm not going to call for who's got lockdown because then I'll get a million volunteers. I'll just pick random numbers off the top of my head. Alpha 6, Bravo 3, and Charlie 9, Delta 9. You guys have lockdown? Come on over here. Everyone over to the gen room. If you guys don't have lockdown, let me know and I'll select someone else.
I'm out of resources.
Charlie 3. Also, while we're here, if you currently have an implant equipped, go and de-equip it, because it's chewing up your enemy.
Sorry, Val. I actually did have it. I didn't realize at all.
Alright, that's alright. Four lockdown maxes I've called for. Make sure you're loading up for anti-infantry as well with your lockdown max. Sorry, I should have specified. I'm seeing 2 maxes up here ready to go. Over to the gen room, guys, south side of the terminal. Can I get my lockdown maxes locked down here on this second stairwell, or this second stair landing? Looking towards that door as if people were going to crash from a teleporter into a biolab. I'll give them a bit of space so they can get ready to go. Seeing 1 here. Where's the other 3 that I called for? 2. Looking down towards this door we just came through as if people were coming through a teleporter into a Biolab Generator room. There's 4. This turret's probably going to mess you up a little bit, mate, so you might want to clear it. But it just restricts your field of fire. It's not something I'd recommend as a go-to. Engineer pack behind these guys. You need a bit of ammo. I'd probably advise people to clear the doorway area because things are about to get real fucking hot down there. Now, when you know an enemy's coming and you're in lockdown with a heap of friends or a small squad ready to go, don't wait to see the enemy. It does fuck up your accuracy for those that care about that. Bad luck. But if you know they're coming, you just want to maintain constant suppression fire, so just open up on that doorway. Full fire, don't worry about ammo, you can have tons. Now, the advantage of just constantly firing is that you don't have to worry about lag. If an enemy's coming through and they're lagging a bit, they can fire or get a few rockets off before you even see them and start shooting. Whereas if you've got constant fire going, they're dead before they get a chance anyway to hit red. It also is incredibly potent. Now when you're firing like that, you probably want to stagger your arms a bit so you don't end up reloading both at the same time if you're using similar guns. As you can see, it's incredibly powerful at killing people. So can I get all the Delta outside here with me? Don't go through the door that's being focused. Can I get the maxes to resume fire on the door? Delta, how do you feel about going through that doorway when you look at it? Nope, yep. So people say suppression fire in PlanetSide doesn't work. I say bullshit, people aren't shooting enough. Suppression fire is the fear of death if you enter an area. People are pretty going to be scared of going through that. So, Delta, let's charge the door. Go, go. Charge the maxes, run right on them. We get some ceasefire and then reses up.
I got one.
Yeah, it'll happen. You guys can see that was a full squad. How long did that squad last? Anyone? Take a rough guess?
20 seconds.
Not even that, mate.
No.
That's 6
Not
seconds.
bad.
Second. It was with 4 maxes. Now imagine you had a full squad of 12, or, you know, you wouldn't even need that. You could probably do it with 10 and 2 guys running NG, or, you know, 8, 2 guys NG, 2 medic. Double the amount of firepower coming out of there. Nothing is going to come through that doorway. That's what lockdown is all about. Lockdown is not out in the field, you know, max versus max charging around buildings, killing shit. That's what charge is for. Lockdown's about finding a good spot. Crash through because they have to crash through, because it's a generator room or something like that. And you just light them the fuck up as they come through, and you can obliterate entire squads. It does require a little bit of sacrifice. You know, you can't be the solo hero getting all the kills. Just working as part of the squad. You're just contributing your fire. You can do a similar thing without lockdown maxes. If you get a full squad just firing their small arms, doing exactly the same, you know, you do lose a bit of downtime due to reloading. Same thing can happen. No one's going to come through that door. Focused fire is incredibly powerful. That's part of the reason why you use doorways like this. Anything, or doorways, small choke points, the stairwells in triple buildings, anywhere where you know the enemy has to come through, try and find a little choke point. And as they come through the choke point, you focus them down with all the fire your squad has available. You know, by making sure you're setting up your fire positions so that everyone has an angle. You don't have friendlies in the way blocking your fire. You crouch down in front so the guy behind you can shoot. And you have an extremely a powerful amount of firepower to put out. You can be outnumbered 3 to 1. If they have to come through that doorway and you have an entire squad shooting at that door, they aren't going to get through. Pure and simple. Only counter to this is the max crash, which is why the max crash is the meta for breaching buildings these days. To counter that, you can go for pounders, you can have your sensor darts down to see the maxes coming, get your C4 out ready to blow. It is always going to be an issue, and even then, a setup like this against a full squad of maxes, some of them might breach through if they've got charge, but the majority of them are going to go down, and then it's just clean up time. A while ago we did a holdout on Izmir at, what's the name of that base? Aurora Materials, back when they first brought in the max abilities. Basically a squad and a half of Redback versus Tog at the time, who were probably about 2 squads strong. They loaded up full Aegis shields, we all loaded up with lockdown. They came across the bridges while we all set up in there with lockdown fracture maxes, and we just melted them, like a full squad of maxes with maxed out Aegis charging across a bridge at us. Not one of them made it halfway across the bridge. Focus fire in lockdown is incredibly powerful. You add in a bit of squad fire to it, or if you just squad fire without lockdown, nothing's going to breach. And when you have your little killing zones like this, because Johnny Derp isn't standing in the doorway soaking up all the fire, and you don't have to worry about hitting friendlies and holding fire, or being blinded and not being able to shoot because there's friendlies in the way, you can just full auto fire, nothing's going to breach. It is a difficult thing to do when you're running in those pubs in the area because they will run up to the door, but you've just got to deal with it at the time. Either by putting them down and not going to res them, because that will get your medic killed when they run up, or just dealing with them as they're there. I'd try to advise not killing them, yell at them, set up, if pubs were running now and they ran into this room and looked out, everyone's set up around this doorway, no pub's going to come stand here in the middle of the doorway unless they're a goddamn idiot. It's pure and simple. They look around and see people in the right positions, set up in a defensive line. They're going to run over here, they're going to join the defensive line. Unless they're incredibly stupid, which there are some people. If you're in the right place, pubs will follow lead. And when you're set up like this, you know, you are going to have a bit of fire coming through. A few guys might get left out and not get as many kills as everyone else, but no one's going to breach the door, and that's what matters when you're trying to hold an objective or take one. Practical applications. Generator rooms like this, either on defense against a crash. If you have secured the generator and you're waiting for the enemy to come to you to try and resecure the generator from the opposite direction. Incredibly useful. Your objective is to make that generator go down. You hold that generator room, you make sure nothing comes into that generator room until the gen's down, and then you counter push. If you flip the gen and then everyone runs off through the lab, they get gunned down one by one, the enemy comes in and just retaps the gen because there's no one left around. So keep that in mind. You always want to stick with your squads. In a defensive area, play the objective. If it's a capture point, generator. If it's a building you're trying to hold to stop the enemy flanking you, play the objective. Stay in your position and hold on to it. So we'll just have a quick practice run. We get set up as if this was generator room. Everyone would just flip the gen. We'll get Alpha Bravo again, since you guys did so well. Get Charlie Delta outside here as if they're counter-attacking from the Biolab spawn. Charlie Delta just want to come meet on me. Let us know when you're set, guys. Now, out in the field you wouldn't have time to make sure you're fully set, but you do your best you can and get locked in. You've got to move quick and get your position set up. Charlie Delta, we're going to take that building. Alpha Bravo, here we come. Get your shit ready. 3, 2, 1, charge, charge, charge.
Yep.
There, ceasefire. We'll look at how that went. Charlie Delta, what were your losses?
Charlie lost 2 guys.
Not too bad, Charlie. Alpha Bravo, what did you lose? Most of Delta got wiped out.
I lost 1 max, that was it.
You got
Where was your max?
Strafing casualties up on the roof.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a few T-kills up here.
Oh, come on, Joe.
So, the numbers, guys, as you can see, if you set up to hold the enemy and they can crash, that was 2 squads charging you guys full on, no holding back. How many of them made it into the room to do damage to you guys? That's what it's all about. That's defensive positioning, is when you don't have people blocking your lines of fire, when you're set up ready for them, you've got a nice little firing line and you can just fully unload on anyone coming through with concentrated firepower. That's what it's all about, and trust me, it is incredibly satisfying when, the enemy crashes you with 2 squads and maxes and backup, and they're just dead before they get halfway through. It's incredibly satisfying. It feels really good. So I'm not going to go on for too much longer because I'm probably already boring people and I've gone over time, and I apologise because it was a bit disorganised. Now, I'll leave it up to you guys and your squad leads to put it into practice out in the field, because taking a full platoon out to try and do small-scale, close-quarters defensive things gets a bit messy. So I'll leave it up to your leads to put into practice in the field. Adapt it, use it. These are by no means the solution to any and all problems. You have to adapt on the fly. Just make use of the basic concepts of keeping your killing ground, your firing lines open, and your friendlies, nice and secured. I didn't go over it before, but another reason why you keep your people together in a nice little firing line is if someone goes down, the medic behind the line can res them. If someone's in front of the line and the medic goes forward, the medic's in the kill zone. Medics can just run backwards and forwards behind a firing line, keeping everyone topped up without any worries, whereas if they try to res someone who died in a silly place, medic's going to get dead and you'll have no medic. It's another thing to keep in mind. So I'll just wrap it up there. If anyone has any questions, put them in platoon chat and I'll try to answer them as best I can. Question time! Gal drops, yep, you'll primarily see them on, this is one building you will see it on, say something like TI Alloys, where there's a little balcony out the back doors, which are sealed on this. You will see them occasionally on these. It depends on the building where your vulnerabilities are. You try to deal with them, set up to defend them. Like if you were defending this upper level, geez, I can't talk, mate. We're defending this upper level against breaches through the upstairs back doors, which you may see on places like TI, which is a big crash zone. Wouldn't be setting up, right here at the door. Where's your kill sit? Your kill zone? You'd section off half the room. Okay, anything along this half of the room is where we're setting our line up. Anything in front of that half of the room is dead. If you get a line of maxes and you get flanked, then people obviously aren't watching their sectors. You'd have your lockdown set up. You'd have, Alpha watching one side, Bravo watching the other. If someone gets through to wipe out the flank of Bravo, then Alpha's obviously fucked up somewhere, and you can blame Alpha for that. You don't all want to be focused one direction. You got two squads, or you got one squad, you split your squad to watch different angles. Generally, lockdown with one squad doesn't work that well, because you just don't have enough numbers to watch everywhere. But you have people watching your backs. If you've got friendlies watching a door, and you see that they're watching a door, take a look around and make sure that any of the other entrances are covered. If you see an entrance that isn't covered, you're the person to cover it. Be proactive, be a volunteer. If you see a door that isn't covered, that's your job to cover that door. Don't think, someone else will deal with it, because someone else won't deal with it. It's up to you to take the responsibility of watching out for your allies, watching out for your squad mates and teammates, because, if you don't do it, then why the hell should they bother looking out for you? You might be the guy sitting there on a door for the entire event, the entire cap or whatever, staring at the door, and nothing comes through that door for the entire time. But if you aren't on that door and an enemy comes through, your squad's dead, and that's on you for not watching that door. It's all about making a little bit of sacrifice to watch out for your team with things like that. With conks, like I said, if you have a nice firing line set up and a nice clear killing zone, it doesn't matter if you get conked, because you can just point and shoot, and it doesn't matter whether you can see the target, because they're somewhere in that zone, and you've got no friendlies in that zone, and you've got free fire. Any other questions? Now, I'll get, squad leads, go out there, try and put it into practice where you can, comes in handy, like assaulting crossroads. You get a squad locked down inside B point, a squad locked down inside C point. It may take 20 minutes to flip the base, but that base will flip if you guys are dug in a defensive position, just killing anything that tries to breach. I'll leave it up to your leads to take it out, put it into practice where you can. If you see one member of your squad that's done this training, being Donnie Derp, being a ballerina and dancing in the doorway, pull them up, and if they don't get out, put a bullet in their ass to remind them. Because they're actively helping the enemy by standing there in that doorway. Now, caveat. This is not the be-all and end-all of defensive. If you have even numbers or greater numbers, you want to be out there engaging them before they get to you. You want to be finding buildings to set up overwatch and enfilade, crossfire zones, killing them before they get to you. This is a last hold stand, or a situation where you are going to get engaged at close range and you have no choice but to deal with them when you're locked down inside. They will come in, they will frag the fuck out of you, they will charge you with smoke, they'll charge you with conks. You will have a hard time. It is not going to save you each and every time when you get attacked. You've just got to make the most out of it, apply it as best you can, and be ready to reposition. For example, in the triple building, if primary room gets overrun, collapse back into secondary room and set up a defensive line looking into that room and covering your stairwell. You just got to adapt on the fly and apply the concepts of your fire zones, your killing ground, and keeping friendlies out of the way. Yep, I'll wrap it up there, and I'll leave your leads to go out there and try and put it into practice somewhere on the battlefield, because I've kept you for too long already, I believe. Let me know how you go out there. If you're running into constant issues, give me a shout, and I'll try to do what I can to see if I find a solution for you. That's what it's all about: tactics and counter-tactics, playing and counterplay, or as some people like to call it, metagame. So thank you very much for attending. Like I said, I do really appreciate, especially when I get these sort of numbers to these things like this. Regards to the metagame, people always talk about, SOE doesn't add anything to the metagame, or they didn't create a metagame, and I think those people are fucking idiots, because it isn't SOE's job to create the metagame, the game within the game. They give you the framework, they give you the game. Admittedly, the framework they have given us is pretty fucking slim. But it's up to the players to create the tactics and counter-tactics within that, the game within the game. SOE gives us the game, it's up to the players to make the game within the game that makes what it is. People turning up to sessions like this trying to find new tactics and develop ways to deal with the enemy and deal with the enemy's tactics and counter the tactics of the counter tactics, that's what creates the game as an overall. That's the metagame, that's what creates depth, as opposed to just a point-and-click adventure with 200 people. So I do thank you all for coming along and at least listening in, even if you take nothing from it. If you take nothing at all away from this today, don't be a goddamn ballerina. Don't be the idiot standing in the doorway getting shot in the back of the head by friendlies.
Thanks.
So, thank you all.
Now, just if I can add here, this is a good chance to have a group photo, so you guys have something to take away from this. You can show it off, picture frame it, and put it in your house. So let's have a group photo here with Val standing in front, just right along this wall where the SU shoe gen would normally be. It should be able to fit all of us.
Make him dance in front of the doorway.
Yeah, let's get the looks at the front kneeling and having people stand behind him.
Yes, let's get the Maxes right at the back.
Also, if you're on 64-bit, your screenshots will not work unless you do them through Steam, because 64-bit's kind of broken.
Say that again, Val?
If you're on a 64-bit client, any attempts to take screenshots or record will end up in black screen, because 64-bit client is a little broken.
Alright, cheers.
Unless you take it through an external program like Fraps. Even Fraps may fuck up.
That's alright, just got one from Steam, that seems to work. We've got a few more comers. Come on, get a photo.
Whoops.
I'll assume that's done.
Okay, last time. Doing it in 5 seconds.
Fire over his head.
3, 2, 1. There we go. Beauty.
Thank you all for attending. I know it's a lot of people probably think it's bullshit and you're taking time out when you could be going to shooting stuff in the face, so I'll leave you to go and do that. And I hope people can take something away from my incoherent babbling.